Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I would just like to continue talking more about my Thor action figures, and as promised, this time I will show you the few that I have from the Marvel Select line of Thor figures. So the oldest one that I have that showed up around early 2000s is the Ultimate Avengers version of Thor, which is this one right here. And he doesn't really wear an interesting costume. It's just kind of presented in a sort of a more realistic way, I suppose, the way he would look if he really did exist. So there is nothing about his attire to indicate that he's a demigod or that he is even from the Viking mythology or anything. He just looks like an ordinary dude, more like a bouncer in a nightclub or something like that. He has a rather nicely done facial expression. He's gnashing his teeth and he looks really ticked off, so he's very angry for some reason or another. The hairstyle is different than his usual long blonde hair. Some reminiscent of his classic costume are these circles that he also has here. Now his hammer is the interesting one because it looks extremely different from his regular Mjolnir hammer. This one looks more like an amalgam of a hammer and an axe. And what's interesting about it, this is the same exact, almost the same exact Mjolnir hammer that he's, or the hammer, the new style hammer that Thor is using in the Infinity War and in the Endgame. So I also noticed the way other Avengers were reimagined in the Ultimate Avengers comic books from a while back, meaning regarding their costumes and such. Many such, most of their costumes, except for Thor, for example, and probably Iron Man as well, would actually end up appearing in the Avengers movies. Except for the Thor, they didn't choose this particular costume. They just decided to go and put him in a more classic one. Now, Marvel Select was never really known, at least back then, for tremendous articulation points or anything. They were very limited in the early days, more like semi-statues. And this was, of course, the case with this particular Thor as well. He couldn't do any splits. He could just move leg forward, not even backward. There is ankle movement, but no ankle pivot. The legs could bend in the knees. Arms could go up and down, so at least you could put him in some poses with him lifting his hammer or so. And he could put the arms sideways. There was waist articulation, very tight though, but he can move. And then in the elbows and in the wrists. The head also can go 360 degrees, but only left to right. There is no up and down motion. But yeah, he still looks good, I would say, even though the costume is not that impressive at all. So I think he can pass as sort of an alternate version of Thor, or for what he was, at least in the as far as the Ultimate Avenger storyline goes. But I think he still looks good. Not my most favorite, but not that bad either. I would say the sculpting itself is what saves him, not so much the costume. And he is also quite tall. So most of the Marvel Select figures would be much taller than their Marvel Legends counterparts. So they would be up to 7 inches or more in height. So some of them would probably not be able to fit very well with the Marvel Legends. I was able to fit some, but not all of them. Anyway, moving on. The first Thor movie comes along a couple of years later after this figure. And they released this movie version Thor based on the first movie. It doesn't really bear the resemblance of Chris Hemsworth, not really. Even the hairstyle is not the same. But the costume looks rather good. I'm just not too impressed with the articulation. Again, it's quite limited, but again, it's to be expected. So a couple of years passed since that previous Thor, and the articulation was more or less in the stages of experimentation. they were probably, the way it seems to me, they were looking for ways how to slowly start mimicking Marvel Legends and try to increase articulation points in the figure, but this is still not at that point. He comes with a very stiff rubber cape, and again, articulation is the same. He's kind of able to do a very minimal split, which is an improvement over that one that wasn't able to do any. His hammer is okay, I guess. It looks pretty much the same as all the previous ones. The annoying thing is that he could not put his arms all the way up against his body. They always kind of jut out like this. I wish that he could move his arms more toward his body, but I cannot do that due to the limitations of the sculpt. But yeah, that would be the MCU version of Thor based on the first movie. I don't have any Marvel Legends version of Thor, but this would be the only one from the Select. So moving along then to what came next, as far as or what came around the same time. There was a he's not willing to stand, is he? There we go. Stand, don't fall again. Next one is this Thor, which already saw the release in the Marvel Legends Hasbro around 2012 or so, and it's the oh, come on. Okay, this guy is not cooperating. The problem with this MCU Thor is also that he's not willing to stand properly. He keeps keeling over, and that's kind of annoying about him because the cape is a little bit too long. They molded it to be quite a bit long, actually, and that's what kind of creates a problem for him standing properly. So there we go. I had to lean him a bit. Anyway, going back to the this armored version of Thor, there was one from Hasbro, which I covered in one of my previous videos, and I might as well bring him back for you guys to see what I mean. So this is, on the left here, we have the Hasbro Legends Armored Thor, I guess, or the way he looked, a more modern look. And this is, on the right, the Marvel Select version of the same. Now, the main difference that you can tell right off the bat is that the Select one is taller. And I would say I like the Select version a bit more due to the facial expression and the fact that he's taller. What do I like about the one on the left is the hammer, for example. The hammer looks alright, I guess, although it's a little bit blocky. And I like the fact that there seems to be at least some detail in the chainmail, which is also a nice touch. Other than that, their capes are more or less the same. The hairstyle and so forth, that all looks pretty much the same. The helmets are the same. There is just a difference in the colors of the capes. One is more lighter red, the other one is darker red. But those are very minimal differences. In reality, both figures do the job well, at least in representing this particular version of Thor, which is an armored one. Not to be mistaken for the Asgardian Armor Thor, because that's a completely different outfit altogether. So, moving along then, after this particular Thor came one more, from the couple of years later, from the Disney stores, where this particular one would be a Disney store exclusive, and this would be the classic version of Thor. So there he is. He comes with the hammer, of course, and the hammer is rather small, and I would say this is again probably because most likely is that he's based on the first appearance of Thor in the comics, and the first comic book being The Journey into Mystery. I believe that came out in the 1960s. So that's why the Mjolnir at that time was not drawn to be rather large. It's a little bit kind of dinky and too small, but that's just the way he was drawn back then. So yeah, this would be the classic version of Thor from Disney. He also came with like a rock boulder I wasn't really sure what's that for, unless he was meant to be standing on it, although I tried it once and he just keeled over because he's too heavy, and the boulder is just hollow and it doesn't really have any weight to it, so you cannot really support him in that sense. And what happened after that is that this figure was not meant to compete with Legends ones. It's just that he was meant to just mark again the occasion of Thor's classic costume. And I will now show you some comparisons to, let's say, the Toy Biz one that I talked about in my previous video. So here they are side by side, and then another Toy Biz one of his classic look from the Giant Man wave, meaning this one. There we go. This one, as I already mentioned before, is just too short, so he looks very tiny compared to the Select one. And then we also compare him to the 80th anniversary Marvel Legends Thor. That's also supposed to be based on the first appearance, and there he is. Now, between these two, I would say the Select one has a bit of an edge, the way he looks, and due to the sculpting as well. But in reality, both figures look okay. It's just that my preference is the one on the right, meaning the Select one. So that would be the Thor Select figures. I do have another one, which I will discuss separately, that also represents Thor in one of his more modern costumes, and I believe that other one was also a Disney exclusive. But I will talk about him and some of the other ones in my next video. So catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.